Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Dever. We're here today for the COVID-19 emergency response pre-bid meeting. At this time, if I'd like to first maybe go around the room and have some general introductions of who is in the room with us, and then we will go through maybe identifying those people that are on the phone. This proceeding is being recorded and will be available on the county website. I'm not sure, before the end of today, I would assume, so that you're able to view it and also to see the PowerPoint presentation. It is available also to be viewed. If you go to Committee Room B on the county on the County Council website, it says Committee Room B for live stream, and that's where you'll be able to see the PowerPoint presentation that we'll be discussing today. So with that being said, I'm going to turn to my left here.
Thanks, Director. My name is Matthew Reimer. I'm the Facilities Design and Maintenance Administrator for Cuyahoga County.
Hello, I'm Eric Mack. I am the project manager for this project.
Hi, I am Ernie Zadell. I am a project manager for this project as well.
Thanks.
Nicole English, Planning and Programming Administrator with Public Works.
Okay, so I know we do have quite a few people that are on the line also now, and hopefully be patient with us, but I'm going to ask you if you can.
They can't hear you. Get close.
Get
Hello,
close.
everyone. My name is Tiffany Howdy. I'm the Diversity Inclusion Officer for Cuyahoga County, as well as Deputy Director for the Office of Regional Collaboration.
I appreciate that, Janae. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the administration with us on this call? No? Okay, with that being said, then I'm going to reach out to those potential bidders on the pre-proposal. If you could at least state your name and what company you're with, and just be patient with each other as you move along here. So if somebody wants to take the lead. Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. I'm sorry, could you, there was two people speaking at the same time. Thank you, Thomas.
Marty Antones, North Star Construction.
Thank you, Marty.
Thanks.
Tom from WTV Mechanical.
Thank you, Tom.
Terry Williams, Roman Designs Construction.
Shantae Thompson, Brigadier Construction Services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adrian Maldonado and Associates.
Thank you, Adrian.
Desmond Reed, AK-18.
Thank you.
Red Eye Fiola.
Kirkpatrick, AK-18.
Aaron, if you could say yours again.
Arian Kirkpatrick, AK-18.
Thank you.
Terry Williams from McBeth Corporation.
Thank you.
Brett Ifiola, Shermer Construction.
Thanks, Brett.
Alex Harper, APB and Associates.
Thank you.
Warner Kunze, Cold Harbor Building Company.
Thank you.
For anyone who has not identified yourself, or even if you have, there's a slide up on the screen now that if you could email your information to Eric Mack at emac@cuyahogacounty.us, we'll be sure to have a complete list, which will also be published so that people can get in contact with each other if they want for teaming opportunities. It will also help to ensure that you get any direct mail if you weren't on our initial outreach list for any addendums or clarifications going out. Okay.
David Bone with Richard Bone and Associates.
Thank you, David.
Carson Held with Cleveland Building Restoration.
Thank you, Carson.
You could email your information to Eric Mack
And just as a housekeeping item, if you mute your computer because the YouTube is a few minutes behind or a minute behind seconds, otherwise you'll be repeating, you'll be hearing us on repeat. So it's better to hear on the phone and just watch on the video. Sorry, we're all kind of new at doing this online. Okay, I think we can move on to the next slide.
Okay, so once again, this is Mike Dever. For those of you that have been following this project along its way, we have initiated first a phase 1 project that had been approved by County Council just this past a week ago Tuesday. And so just this past Tuesday, we are now moving forward with a phase 2, which is very similar to the phase 1 project. And so I'll give you a general background on it. Obviously, we are going through this pandemic, and we have roughly 4.2 million square feet of owned building space, and then also roughly 1 million square feet of lease space that the county houses its services in. Today, Public Works, in collaboration with the courts, sheriff, Health and Human Services, and the consultants, we have established screening operations in all our county buildings for anyone who wishes, both employee and or the general public, to come into our facilities. You need to go through a screening process which incorporates a thermometer or temperature check, and then also 2 questions in regards to if you had been exposed to the COVID-19 virus. At the same time, we have gone through some preliminary design safe provisioning plans. This is so we can open up our doors to the general public. It's been a very soft opening, which started first with the courts. So we've implemented some public-facing barriers and space configurations so we can start these openings. That has commenced. The courts are, I think we're 10 days into it now. The courts have been in operation, soft opening. We are reviewing right now when we will open the remainder of the county facilities for the general public and for all employees to come back to work. Tentatively, we are thinking sometime early July that will take place. What else is happening? So what I have in front of me now, for those of you that are watching on the screen, is basically our organizational team for this overall project. The County Public Works, so those people that you had heard from here, Matt Reimer, Nicole English, Eric Mack, and Ernie Zedell, make up the Public Works team. We do have various other participants that are working with us. We have an owner's rep or a program manager, coordinator, resource, relocation specialist, Inc. are serving in that role. We have a construction manager, which is Hill International, that'll be participating in this project. And then we have a series of criteria architects and engineers that are working with us as we develop plans that ultimately will be put out for construction. And the phase 1 contractors that are participating, and we're working through contract language as we speak, is Gilbane, Whiting Turner, Turner Construction, Constructability, the Albert M. Higley Company, Geist Construction, North Star Contracting, and Cold Harbor Building Company are involved in phase 1. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Matt Reimer, who is going to give us an overview of the projects and our anticipated projects that could be part of this second phase of work. Matt?
Thank you, Director. Again, Matt Reimer, Facilities Design and Maintenance Administrator for Cuyahoga County. And the next few slides, I'm going to step through the type of work that we're envisioning and that we're currently working with our criteria architects and engineers in getting ready to go for both the Phase 1 and envisioned Phase 2 portions of this program. As an example, at the Justice Center, we have a lot of people that come through the Justice Center, as you may know, second busiest building in the county, save for the Hopkins Airport. And so we're expecting when we return to full operations to have a lot of people coming through the entrances, having to get screened, queuing up for elevators, going up to court, or seeing the various service desks that they need to see within that building. So what we envision needing to do, we've already consolidated to one public entrance to the building so that we can properly queue people for the high-rise elevators. But we're going to need to expand that entrance, we believe, and also reconfigure services in our atrium from the human services of a coffee shop, the physical and security and COVID-19 screening operations, and then just queuing people and addressing any accessibility concerns within that atrium. So that is one of the primary projects we'll have. Next slide, please. Also, within our county jail, we have a number of open dormitories that are, you can see in the pictures provided, where inmates are not in locked cells, but they are in dormitories and bunk beds and in an open environment for a certain classification of inmates. Currently, the amount of inmates that can use the open dormitory areas is restricted because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and isolation being a medical necessity for a number of these inmates. So we're looking to make use of our open dormitories to temporarily provide isolation capability within them so that they can be used for capacity as courts return to service and more inmates are expected to populate the jail. Next slide. In our thousands of county plumbing fixtures, we're hopeful to maximize the amount of automation that we can have in our restrooms and in our water stations to be able to eliminate touch points throughout our facilities and just minimize the transmission of any COVID-19 concerns. Also looking at the hand dryer capabilities within them, going to a paper towel-based system versus electric warm air dryers, and generally spacing within the restrooms as well, and fixture counts to make sure that we're comply with code. Next slide. We're going to be looking at our building HVAC systems throughout our county inventory for opportunities in our building automation systems to increase ventilation consistent with emerging standards coming from ASHRAE or the CDC. And also trying to introduce, where possible, any ultraviolet light lamp for disinfection capabilities within our HVAC systems. Okay, we've been made aware that our live stream is a little bit lagging, so I'm going to pause just for a minute. So these PowerPoints will be provided at a later time so you can catch up to the slides that I'm going. I will keep proceeding. I think our live stream is currently on the building automation for the restroom fixtures. Another sample project that we'll be reviewing is our various entryway configurations. The slide I'm speaking to at this point is about our Virgil Brown Services building for Health and Human Services. Again, it is a condensed entry environment, both for waiting rooms and security screening, and now for health screening. So we'll be looking to reconfigure our building entries and reconfigure them for proper spacing and for maximizing our services and providing protection at the public transaction counters where the public interact with our staff. The next slide, we have, like I just mentioned on the previous, we have a number of public-facing operations. The slide that I'm speaking to has pictures of our clerk of courts offices where there are many public transactions that take place, as well as public terminals that need to be operated by the public. So we'll be working to provide permanent screening and permanent barriers to reduce transmission during public interaction for the services we provide. There are thousands of county employees, all of which have a work environment, many of which are in open office environments, and some of which are densely populated to the point where we cannot operate all of our open office environments without staff 50% reductions or just maintaining a safe distance of 6 feet. So we'll be looking at our open office environments, our cubicle environments, to see how we can provide barriers, how we can provide spacing or reconfiguration to maximize the use of space for our employees and our staffs. In our courts tower and in our jail, there'll be a heavier reliance on remote hearings to be able to conduct court business with minimal numbers of people in the courtroom environment. So we'll be looking to maximize and increase our capabilities for wireless services throughout our jail and our courts tower facility. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. English to go over our RFP.
We're going to go through the sections of the RFP. One of the things we heard as some feedback on our first solicitation was just to be sure that we were clear on what was expected. You know, some of you aren't used to replying to RFPs, you're used to bidding on projects, so we want to be sure that we're giving you the best opportunity to give us the information that we need in order to evaluate. So we've listed here all the sections that we're scoring with the associated points. In red is the sections that you will provide. In black are sections that the county will evaluate, and so you will have to provide just information on geographic location, but that's not something that's really, it's just where your office is. You won't have to provide a write-up or anything on that. Next slide. So the first is vendor qualifications, which is worth the most amount of points. It's 40 points. So this is where you would focus most of your effort related to your response. So the main thing that we're looking for is your experience in the past 5 years with projects providing construction services for jobs similar in nature to what we're describing. There's lots of things that you could include in this. So we've given you some examples. Task order contracts to show that you guys have been able to do not just big, large projects, but also projects that are broken up into smaller tasks that take a quick response and is able to do multiple tasks at the same time. Anyone with COVID building modification experience, we know this is new and probably not everybody has, but if you have been working in any operations that have been getting ready for bringing staff back, be sure to note those in this section. That will help your proposal. Then just building modification work in general. So as Matt described, the projects range from HVAC to entranceway to bathroom work. So any work that you've done related to modifying buildings on the front end, insides, HVAC systems, again, note the different type of work that you've been able to do. Even though if you haven't done all of the work as Matt described, just give us the work that you have been involved in. Public agency contracts. Again, just to show us that you've worked on government projects before, understanding prevailing wage, government contracts, working in public buildings, that kind of experience would be helpful. And then working in active public spaces and office buildings. So again, working where people are, it's an active building, we're not shutting, most of these buildings are working, maybe not to full capacity, but there are people working, and so you would have to be doing some construction in and around an active environment. So another piece of vendor qualifications is your commitment to meet the diversity goals. We've set a 30% goal for this project, and that's any combination of SBE, MBE, or WBE. So it's up to you to tell us how you will meet that goal, and we understand that you won't have all of your subs identified at this point, But if you do have some teaming partners that you already know about or have worked with in the past that you plan to use on this contract, be sure to identify them in this section. If you are an SBE, MBE, or WBE contractor yourself, you get 20% credit. So you will still have to commit to at least another 10%, but you will get the 20% credit for yourself. And then you could include in there any examples of community engagement or outreach programs that you have, how you, if you're not an SBE or MBE, WBE, how you reach out to others in the community and work with them. Then the last piece that should be included in this section is if you're a certified inclusive business. That's defined in our county code. I know there's not very many businesses who have sought this certification, but if you have, note that. And if you haven't, feel free to give us any inclusive business practices that are employed by you as the prime vendor. So if there's mentorship programs, apprentice programs, anything you do to show us that your workforce is diverse in nature. So we've listed on all of these slides some pros and cons that we noticed through the first round of proposals. This is, again, just to give you some help into, what you should be targeting and maybe what didn't work out so well in the last round. So things that our selection committee thought were advantages were when we saw relevant examples, local projects so that we can understand your familiarity with the codes, local codes and permitting processes in Cleveland especially. Illustration of past diversity goals if you've achieved them in the past and your experience working with those firms. And then again, those inclusive business practices. Things that didn't work out so well is if somebody didn't mention any subcontractors that they plan to use, if your references weren't tailored to the work at hand. So for example, if someone showed us that they had only worked on $100 million airport project, not really applicable to this nature. So we want to see that the work that you're showing us on your references is somewhat in line with what we are looking to do. And then if there was no discussion of diversity or previous teaming arrangements, that was seen as a negative. So the next section is staff qualifications, which is worth 15 points. And this is kind of self-explanatory. So you're describing the staffing with an organization chart. It doesn't need to be fancy. Just at least show us who your project manager is going to be, who's going to provide the overall management of the contract and be our point of contact, and then who your main superintendent is going to be. So managing the daily field management of the ongoing task orders. Those are the minimum two. By all means, tell us if there's other people that are going to be heavily involved in the project. Or if there's sub-consultants that you already know that you're going to team with or subcontractors, be sure to list those on your org chart as well so that we can give you credit for those relationships in already establishing that. So some of the good points that we saw in the first was if we had an organization chart that did include subcontractors, that had references for the staff as far as in a resume or at least referencing projects that they had worked on before. And then showing a depth of staff. If we just even though we have a minimum of the project manager and superintendent, if you show us that, you have a decent bench of people that can do the work, that is helpful to us because we are going to be doing these tasks on a pretty quick basis and there could be multiple ones going on at the same time. So some of the things that were viewed as negative in the first round was if there was no text to supplement an org chart, if we only got a chart with 2 names on it, but yet we had no idea, what those people's experience was or what they've previously worked on. That did not help us evaluate them. That goes into the no resumes, or if any past work was not referenced. So if you just told us that Joe is a project manager and we have no idea what Joe ever worked on, that's really hard for us to evaluate him as a project manager as compared to the other groups. So the next section is project methodology, worth 15 points. And this is some place that it's kind of hard to distinguish yourself because most people are gonna, be able to deliver a project in the same way. But this is where you'll describe how you wanna perform this work. So we've tried to give some focus areas so that you can work your write-up around them. So some things to focus on is planning, up front before we contact you, what you do on your side, when we call you to do a task, what would be done up front, how you'll manage a schedule, how you manage communication within your team and with the county and our team, how your document control works, if there's certain software programs you use or quality control measures that you use on your documentation. We know that this contract is going to be scrutinized heavily. We're using federal CARES dollars, which we will assume will be audited later on, so we need to be sure that our documents control is pretty tight and we have record of everything we've spent. And then how you handle project and task closeout. So those are just some ideas, no need to stick to just those, but that's at least trying to give you some idea of where to focus. And then also utilize your past experience on similar work. So this is a good section to tell us, for example, when we worked at Cleveland State on a task order contract, we learned that it's best to have a kickoff meeting up front, and then we have weekly meetings, or whatever you have to glean from your past experience, feel free to bring into this section. So some of the good proposals that we saw related to project methodology were task order based, again, not focusing on a humongous project, but more how you handle smaller tasks. Good examples that, again, tie to some of the things that we talked about. County specific, so that we feel that this is tailored to what we've been asking you to do. Maybe, talking about our buildings or where you could possibly be working or how you see a difference, whether you get a task in the Justice Center versus the county admin building. So we know that you've thought about the different places you might work for the county. And then addressing response time and mobilization. That was a high point in the project methodology for some of the groups that told us they could respond in a short amount of time. So we understand that you are ready and able to work on our projects. Because again, I don't know if Matt or Mike had talked about this, but these funds are anticipated that they have to be spent by the end of the year. So this is a quick hit project, so we want to understand that you are ready and able to work if we contract with you. Some of the negatives that came from the first round is a limited or a brief write-up. We give you 2 pages to work. That's not a ton, and it's on purpose so that we don't make you write too much, but we do expect that you utilize those 2 pages to give us some information. Another thing was a generic approach that looked like maybe it was just pulled from an old proposal or generic marketing material that didn't really address the county or COVID. And the same with the approach not matching the type of work. If it's not in line with what we're thinking we're doing, that wasn't viewed highly. So the last section that you're going to give us information on is the fee and the overhead rate proposal form. So this is we've come up with a pretty simple way. So obviously we don't have the projects to give you to do pure bids on up front. So we've established a form that everybody can put their numbers in and we can compare them. So you tell us what your markup is on the following: employee wages and benefits, materials, equipment, rented equipment, subcontracted work, professional and specialized work. These could be all the same percentage, they could be different, it's up to you. And then you give us your supervisory staff rates, and then we will use this pricing to evaluate your proposal. And it's not a pure comparison, it's relative to each other. So you will be rated relative to everybody else who submits on this. And then when we execute your contract, if you are selected, you will not be able to increase those percentages. However, you will be able to decrease on a task basis if you feel that it's advantageous to you. When we get to the part about how we are going to do mini bids for projects over $100,000, that could be an opportunity that you might choose to lower one of your markup rates in order to be more competitive on the task. But after we contract, you will not be able to raise your rates that you've proposed to us in the RFP. The next section is geographic location. Although I said we evaluate it, you don't have to provide us any information. You do at least need to tell us where is the location of your home office for this contract. So that's essentially where most of the work will be performed out of. I know it's being performed in our buildings, but where is the main office location for this project? If you are within Cuyahoga County, you'll get the most amount of points at 5. Neighboring counties get 3 points. Other in Ohio is 1, and then out of state is 0. So we are looking to reward the county businesses. However, this is only worth 5 points, so not significant. And then the final section that we will evaluate is previous work. This was added to this Phase 2 contract to be sure that we give a good amount of points to people who maybe haven't been awarded county work in the past. This is encouraging some new businesses to do work with us. So this will be based on the previous 2 years of work with Public Works as the prime. If you were a sub on a contract, you will not get these points, only if we had a prime contract with you as the prime vendor. So the points will be awarded if you've had 0 to 100,000, you get 10 points, all the way down to no points if you've had more than $1 million worth of work in the last 2 years with Public Works. So this will be done on our end through a database that we run on our side. So this one you do not need to provide any information on. This next slide, when we get to it, we just listed the Phase 1 contractors that were not selected, and this is not an exhaustive list, but it was just to give you an idea of people who were interested in our project on Phase 1 that maybe were not selected. So if anybody wants to reach out or have some teaming arrangements, we would assume these contractors, if they were interested in Phase 1, may be interested in Phase 2. So this is just a list for anybody if they want to talk to somebody who's already submitted, or people who wanting to understand who might be interested in the contract if you're a sub and want to start teaming. That's only what this slide is for. So that's all I have on the direct information out of the RFP. I'm sure we'll have questions when we open them up. But for right now, we just wanted to turn it over to Janae Hawley, who's the inclusion officer for the county, and she's just going to address the diversity inclusion piece of the project.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. As you know, the county is trying to push forth its efforts of increasing the diversity and inclusion in contracting and purchasing. So with that, as me being the diversity and inclusion officer for the county, I am working to increase our vendor pool to ensure that we have a vendor pool when it comes to contracting and purchasing, as well as increasing the outreach to vendors and stakeholders, just to bring awareness to some of the diversity and inclusion programs and initiatives that we have at the county, and then also to be of assistance to you all. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. On the screen, you'll see my contact information, so I can connect you with OPD in regards to becoming certified if you're not already certified, and submitting info for diversity and inclusion programs. Just wanted to also give a FYI, we are currently, with the Office of Procurement and Diversity, we're currently working with the Urban League in regards to certification workshops. So the Urban League hosts, I believe it's monthly workshops to where you can come in and get assistance from the county, city of Cleveland, and I believe the Northeast Ohio Regional School District. So if you are currently not certified with the county, please feel free to reach out to the Urban League so you can participate in one of the certification workshops, so we can make sure that you get registered with the county. Wanted to touch on one of our inclusion programs that we're trying to increase participation in, and that is the Cuyahoga County Business Economic Inclusion Program, which is where when the county has solicited bids and is determining the lowest price or the lowest evaluated price for purpose of awarding a purchase, agreement, or contract, and the lowest price or lowest evaluated price is submitted by a non-inclusive business, and inclusive business whose bid is within 2% of the lowest bid submitted by a non-inclusive business shall be given the option to match the lowest bid. So if you're registered in this program and you are a inclusive business and you come within 2% of the lowest bid submitted by a non-inclusive business, you have an opportunity to match that lowest bid. Once again, this is a program through the county, but you have to submit a form in order to be included in that program. And once again, if you have any questions or want any additional information on some of the programs that we have to offer, feel free to give me a call or send an email, and I can provide you with some more in-depth detail on these programs, so we can make sure that everyone is included and that we can these contracts going. And one last thing, just as another FYI, We are in the process of completing our current disparity study, and that will be released within the next month or so. So we will be putting together a public forum to release the findings from that disparity study as well. Once again, this is Janae Ali, Diversity Inclusion Officer, and feel free to reach out with any questions and concerns. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, thank you, Janae. Appreciate it. This is Mike Dever again, once again with the Department of Public Works. So that is our overview of today's pre-bid or pre-proposals. So at the same time, now we would like to give an opportunity to people to ask questions, and with those, if you could identify yourself, and then at the same time, if we need to follow up, we will make sure we do so in a response to the questions. It'll be online. We'll post those. So if anyone has a question, I'll try and identify you, and so you'll be able to ask it, and we'll do the best to answer it today.
Mike, I have a question, if I may.
Okay, who is this?
This is Brett with Shermer Construction.
Thanks, Brett. Go ahead.
Mike, thanks. I have two questions. Number one, how many contractors does the county intend to select in this round two?
Right now, depending on the number of proposals we receive, we haven't made a determination on that. As you know, on the first round, we ended up selecting 8 contractors. We're still working through the contracts specifically with each of for those. So we will make a determination on that depending on the proposals that come in and the volume of work we believe we have in front of us.
Okay, so you will not release that prior to the RFP being due, though, correct?
No.
Correct.
Okay. Second question is, are the phase 1 contractors eligible to submit for phase 2? The selected ones eligible to submit for phase 2?
Well, they are eligible to submit for it, but obviously performance on previous projects is probably going to weigh against them.
Okay. You would, in that section 5 or 6, whatever number it is,
Correct.
even though, I assume they haven't completed any of that work yet.
But it will be
Only a week ago.
Sorry, Brett, any contract that has been awarded will be counting in that, so that the project has been awarded, so they would be getting 0 points in the previous work category.
Okay, so they are eligible, but I guess really the bottom line is they are eligible to submit then if they chose to do so.
Correct. We don't anticipate that they would, but I guess they do have the right to submit, yes.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Next question.
Yeah, Thomas Broad here with Lawler Construction. I'm looking at Exhibit B form that I printed out on the occupied buildings. Some of these buildings are highlighted and some of them are not. What is the significance of this, the highlighted and the non-highlighted?
The highlighted buildings are leased facilities, or the grade, I don't know if it's gray or highlight, but the ones that do not have any shading on them are county-owned facilities. That's also indicated on the last column. I'm not sure why it says vendor, but it's under vendor. It tells you if it's a leased or owned building.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
We must have done a great job explaining. So even after this meeting, if you have any questions, feel free to send them to Eric Mack. His contact information is on the RFP. It's also on the first slide of this presentation that we'll post. You know, we're happy to answer questions through, I think, up until 72 hours before it is due.
Correct.
So as long as you get your questions in, we will reply to them.
And please email me that you attended this meeting, because otherwise we don't know. We only see phone numbers calling in.
Okay, is there any other further comments or questions?
Great.
Okay, I really appreciate everyone's participation today, and we look forward to receiving your proposals on June 30th. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.